Today we're recapping my favorite moments from Nicaragua in 2025. Let's have a look. Welcome back to the channel. My name's Ian. I'm known as WanderBeard around these parts. And in today's video, we are recapping my favorite moments from Nicaragua. So my journey across Nicaragua started from the north when I entered from Honduras and made 8 stops across the country, primarily heading down sort of the Pacific coast, which is where a lot of the major cities are in Nicaragua, eventually getting to the southern end where I then continued on to Costa Rica. I made 9 videos in Nicaragua while I was there, and I'm really excited to show you some of those highlights today. Just a quick recap, in 2025, I visited 7 countries in total. We've already discussed Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, and today we're here to talk about Nicaragua, and up next will be the final country, Costa Rica. Without further ado, let's have a look at my favorite moments from Nicaragua. Starting in the honorable mention position, I have the Managua waterfront. Managua was a very strange capital in some ways. Obviously, it had been heavily destroyed by an earthquake in the 70s, and so much of the capital's sort of main area had sort of moved away from the waterfront. However, when I was down there, I found that there was a wealth of different things to check out. There was different museums, there was different parks, there was even a full-size airplane that you could go inside of and check out. Let's have a look at some of the clips from my time on the Managua waterfront. So I'm just going to take a walk back up around. We're going to go past that cathedral again and over there, because there are some things on that side that did look interesting from what I saw, and I'm hoping I can get over there to take a look. So that was just a quick walkthrough down here on the waterfront of the Rubén Darío Museum. Rubén Darío is a very famous poet and author here in Nicaragua, and is one of the national heroes of the country. They've got this little kids park here, and a bunch of seating and stuff along this boardwalk. Really beautiful spot, but there's just nobody around. And of course, you can't visit anywhere these days without one of these big city signs. So that's literally a full-size airplane that you can go inside and check out. This is a scale model of all of the major buildings here in Managua. So this is the National Theater, the Rubén Darío Theater. There's the big cathedral, one that sits in ruins since it was damaged in the earthquake. And here's the National Palace. Here's one that says the Bank of America. I'm assuming the Bank of America no longer owns that building. I kind of feel like King Kong here walking through the buildings, or Godzilla. Over this way, the next section over, is actually a water park for kids and stuff, so they got a big pool and splash pads and all that kind of stuff. In number 5 position, we have the Granada Historical District. So Granada was a bit of a changeover in the country from the more liberal north to the conservative south, if you understand the history in Nicaragua. And Granada was beautiful. The whole historical area of the main part of the town was just beautiful. Old cobblestone streets, lots of shops and markets, and included a very nice walk right down to the water on the lake. Let's have a look at some of the clips from the historical district in Granada. We are just up here by the ruins of the San Juan de Dios Hospital. This was a building that was built in 1905 and stood for about 100 years, up until 4 or 5 years ago, you could actually go inside and check it out. Walking down through town here, you get a real sense of the old colonial style buildings that are still here today. This is the Iglesia de la Merced. It was originally built in 1534, so just 10 years after the city was founded. So it is one of the oldest churches here in the city. So just a few blocks away, we are here at the Chocolate Museum. So they've got a little workshop in here, which you can go in and actually make your own chocolates and stuff. And then they've got a museum tour, which goes out back. I will take a little walk through the museum here in a second. And then they've got this gift shop out front. It's funny, one of the things I was reading the other day was talking about how cacao prices have exploded in the last few years due to climate change. So a lot of the cacao and chocolate in the world now comes from Africa, from places like the Ivory Coast, and the heat waves and problems they've been having there have resulted in cacao prices like tripling since about 2020. So welcome to Central Park here in Granada. We're just here in front of the famous yellow cathedral, and it's a pretty busy spot even in the middle of the day on an overcast day. So this is the famous yellow cathedral here in Granada, known as the Immaculate Conception Cathedral. It was actually just built recently in 1991 and was officially opened in 1993. And it's a beautiful church here right on the main square. So there's, you can see here's the main square here with the band shell and lots of shops and stuff around it. Here's a sign here celebrating the 500 years of Granada, which, as I mentioned, since 1524, so 500 years was just last year. The street's really nice for walking down. I mean, it's peaceful. It's closed off to traffic, at least heading down towards the lake. So what's really nice about it is you get all these little park benches and stuff along the way. It's the front face of the Church of Guadalupe. Well, this stone was placed here September 1992, but this church is definitely older than that. So I can certainly see why when people come to Nicaragua, they immediately make a run for Granada. It is a very cool, very historical, very laid-back town. So we've made it down to the lakefront, waterfront here in Granada, and beautiful spot, and there's hardly anybody around. So this is Lake Nicaragua. It is one of the largest freshwater lakes in the world. If you look very carefully from here up past the cranes, there you can see the Immaculate Conception Cathedral off in the distance. So that is approximately how far? About 15 minutes, I would say, on foot from the Immaculate Conception Cathedral down to here to the lakefront. And in the number 4 position, I have Laguna de Apoyo. Laguna de Apoyo is a place that I don't think most people even know exists in Nicaragua. And it was spectacular. I had a wonderful Airbnb that I found on the lake that had its own private access down to the water. I spent almost a week there doing nothing but watching the clouds roll by, watching the sunset, and the fireflies at night. Just a beautiful spot. It's only about a half an hour from Granada, but felt like an entirely different country. But just an absolute stunner of a place. And here are some very short clips from Laguna de Apoyo, because I didn't film a lot while I was there. I was too busy relaxing, but I wanted to showcase it anyway. Welcome to Laguna de Apoyo here in Nicaragua. This is sort of a side quest, I suppose, of sorts from Granada. We are only about 25 to 30 minutes outside the city, but we are, as the saying goes, a world away. I've been staying here now for a couple of nights, and I almost didn't come initially because I was like, it's a little tricky to get to. There's not a lot to do when you get here other than just relax and come down to the lake, maybe swim a little or, hop on a kayak or something like that. But I'm very glad I did. It's been a very relaxing time, and I've just been using it to kind of just watch the world go by and get some work done, and yeah, it's been awesome for that. One of the things that gets recommended a lot if you come to Laguna de Apoyo is to, bring your own groceries and stuff. There's no supermarket here. There's, just some local places to stay that some of them will have restaurants and stuff too, but most of the places around the lake have a kitchen available, which my place does. And so I picked up some groceries in Granada and hopped in a taxi and took a taxi direct out to here. But it's been awesome. It's such a cool place. I look around and I see little places sprinkled, just around the water's edge, little houses and places to stay and that sort of stuff. It's been beautiful here watching the weather. We get some really fierce storms that have come in sort of over these mountains and across the lake. And you can actually just watch them almost like sheets of rain as they come across. So if you are coming through Nicaragua and you're in Managua, or you're heading somewhere else farther down, make sure you stop here and check it out. In the number 3 position, we have the first of 2 from Leon in the northern part of Nicaragua. Number 3 is a tour of the Revolutionary Museum. So as you know, Nicaragua went through a very long conflict over many decades. And one of the coolest places you can go to in Nicaragua to learn some of the history of the country is the Revolutionary Museum. It's on the main square, not too far from the government offices, from the cathedral, from that whole square that's there. They are guided tours. They have both Spanish and English translations of the tours, and it is a wealth of information on the history from the 60s through to the 70s, and how that all still affects Nicaragua today. Let's have a look at some of the clips from the tour at the Revolutionary Museum. So we are just up here on the roof of the Revolutionary Museum, and we just got a bit of a tour, and I'm going to go downstairs after we finish up here again to kind of give you an overview of what's inside. So this building here was built in the 1930s originally, and was used originally as a telecommunications building. And then in the 50s, the National Guard actually used this building as a look-off point. This was also one of the first buildings that the Sandinistas took over in the city. As I mentioned earlier, Leon was the first city that they captured. So he was saying that this building has been the Museum of the Revolution since 1982, but throughout the 90s it was also doubled as a school for a while. And then finally at the end of the 90s, it stopped being a school, and so now the museum is downstairs. Here's one of the old classrooms that would have been used here up until the 90s. You can see the blackboard here on the wall. So this is the main room of the tour that we went through earlier. That was really cool. Really recommend coming and listening to the stories, because obviously the photos alone don't do the whole story justice. And I certainly won't do it any justice, but just kind of give you a very brief review. So this goes back to the 50s when the Somoza family was in power, funded by the US government in order to maintain a hold on the country after many, many decades. The Somozas were very brutal. They imprisoned many political prisoners, many oppositions to the family, those types of things. The US also funded the National Guard, it was called, which was basically the military police in the country, and they would be used to crack down on all of the people. So in 1956, the student protests began. In 1959, there were the 4 students that were murdered, and the rest of these photos, some of these are probably pretty grisly, so I'm going to try and stand back from them a little bit. But there was a movement, obviously, in the 60s, through to the 70s, when the Sandinistas formed, grew in power, and then fought for the freedom for the country. 1979, they finally took over from the Somoza family. So this is a really fascinating place with lots of history here, obviously. You know, going up through this building and looking at all the different uses of it over the years was really interesting. There's so much to learn about this history here in Nicaragua, and it continues today. I mean, essentially the same group that spawned off from the original Sandinista movement is still in power today here in 2025. So you're talking, 40 to 50 years of history here. And this is all fairly recent in the grand scheme of things. That still obviously affects the country here today. I recommend that if you are coming here to Leon, and regardless of your reasons for coming here, if you're coming here to party or to surf down some mountains, make sure that you at least come here and understand some of the history in this country and where it originates from and some of the reasons for it. I think it's a really interesting place to understand some of that stuff. And I know that a lot of people who will watch this video weren't even born in the 60s and 70s. I was born in 74, so while I didn't understand a lot of what was going on at the time, of course, because I was certainly too young, I think that it gave me a better attachment to come here and learn more about it today, and I feel like I've done that. And so I highly recommend that if you are in Leon, make sure you come to this Museum of the Revolution. In the number 2 position, I have the sort of opposite end of the history of Leon. I have Leon Viejo. Leon Viejo is actually the original settlement for the city of Leon that was founded in 1524. It was much closer to the volcanoes and the lake, I would say about 20 minutes outside the city. Due to some terrible earthquakes, by 1610 the decision was to abandon the existing settlement and move it to its new location where it exists today. So when I went to Leon Viejo, I had no idea of what to expect other than what I had read online. But it was an amazing place. It is basically just the remaining foundations of all of the original buildings that were built between the mid 1500s right up to 1600 or so. And it was quiet. It was so peaceful there. And there was so much information that was provided that it really felt like one of the most informed visits I had from anywhere in my travels. Let's have a look at some of the clips from Leon Viejo. Welcome to the ruins of Leon Viejo. This is the original settlement that was founded by the Spanish in 1524 and remained here until 1610. And this was an administrative building that was here at the front of the town. You can see that they've been able to excavate, some of the foundation, and then they kind of dug out the whole area around it to kind of give you an idea of its size. It's another example here of the types of foundations that were here. This one's actually a bit more complex. I don't know if the floor is original or not. I don't see a sign here indicating one way or the other. My hunch is probably not, but the original wall foundations are here, and they've obviously been capped off since they were uncovered. These ruins were excavated in 2013, but were first discovered back in 1967. In 82, there was actually a massive hurricane that blew through this part of the country and reburied everything. So all the efforts that they had in the late 70s to uncover these buildings and find this area were then had to be started over. This statue in the center is the main square, and just over behind it in the distance, which you can just see through the trees, is Momotambo volcano, which is still active to today. It has erupted several times in the last 30 to 40 years, and it is the primary reason why this town did not survive. So yeah, here's the original tile, herringbone style flooring that was part of this, I'm going to call it a mansion because the place was huge. And you can see it had plenty of large defined rooms, and also had this, I'm going to guess, outcrop area, which was another large part of the building. Just a massive complex. What's unique about this building, however, is that in 2000, there's like a crypt underneath that glass, and that crypt would have held the bodies of Captain Francisco Hernandez de Cordoba and Governor Davila. And they were uncovered in that crypt, which would have sat just below the main altar. You can really get a sense of the importance of this Calle Real with the church and, you know, the lawyer's house there and the factory where they would have melted down the gold, all being along this same stretch. Very peaceful in here. And there was only one other tour group that I saw when I came in, so pretty quiet. This was an evangelization center that would have been founded in the city in 1528 by Friar Francisco de Bobadilla. But if you see in the middle, there are 4 holes in the ground, and that is because in 1545, 4 people were murdered and dismembered and then buried in those burial spots. So we've just come up to the look-off point here, the Mirador, where they've got the sign, and this is Volcano Momotambo. So this monument is here in remembrance of the indigenous resistance in 1528 that rose up against the Spanish who had moved in here a few years prior. This is also where the town square would have been at the time. The significance of this spot is that, as we saw earlier, was the town hall building behind it. So that is on the west side of the building. To the north of it, where these trees are now, would have been the governor's house. This was the Cathedral of Santa Maria, and then, of course, to the south was the Calle Real, which we walked down earlier, and the smelting house where they would mine the gold and melt it down. So if you've watched my videos from Nicaragua, my number 1 pick should come as no surprise whatsoever. It is Ometepe Island. Ometepe Island, I spent about a week on in total. I actually made 3 separate stops across the island, so this is kind of cheating maybe a little bit, combining 3 stops in one. But as a whole, the island experience that I had there was unlike anywhere else that I've been. It is easily in my top 5 places of all of my travels across all these different countries, and I cannot wait to go back and see it again. While on the island, I made 3 stops, as I mentioned. I stopped initially in Moyogalpa, which is sort of the town that you come into off of the ferry. I then went to Balgué and Mérida while I was there. I rented a scooter for the entire week and had a blast just kind of wandering around the island, you know, checking out all the different sites. And it was just a spectacular place. One of my top probably 5 or 6 places that I've been to of my entire trip so far, and I cannot wait to return. Almost half my videos from Nicaragua ended up coming from Ometepe Island. So it's gonna be very difficult to compress it down into just one short piece here for this video. So I would encourage you to please go check out the entire series from the island to get a better idea of what it was like. Without further ado, here's my number 1 pick from Nicaragua in 2025, Ometepe Island. Good morning, and welcome to my latest stop here in Nicaragua. I am in the island of Ometepe, more specifically Moyogalpa here, the town on the island. It's been on my list of places to visit for quite some time, and I'm really excited to be here and to see this part of Nicaragua. This is a nice little walking street that they have set up. The cross, you can see the crossovers obviously are accessible with vehicles, but this main drag up the main road here is just pedestrian only. Obviously they've got the ever famous, ever present city sign for Moyogalpa. This is the ring road here that circles the island. Sort of a figure 8. It's a really pretty little town. And then of course they've got the big church here at the end of the road. Well, we are good to go. I have my new trusty steed for the next week, a nice Yamaha moped, and yeah, just out here on the main road. This is sort of back towards Moyogalpa where I am, and this is just kind of heading around the island a little bit. I'm just going for a little short cruise with my helmet on here just to kind of get used to the bike. It's been a long time since I've been on one, but so far so good. And we are just heading to our second destination now, Balaguer, which is about 40 to 45 minutes away. Good morning from another day here in Jurassic Park. I mean Ometepe. This place feels like Jurassic Park when you drive around. So I just stopped here for a minute. This is Playa Primavera. We're sort of kind of back on the first island a little bit. There's that little peninsula that kind of runs between them. We're just on sort of one side of that. You can see here off in the distance as well as I walk this way, one of the two main volcanoes that are here on the island. Volcano Madeiras on the smaller island, which is near Balaguer, which is where I'm staying. So the other major volcano here is Volcano Concepcion. That is on the larger of the two halves of this island. It is a very active volcano as well, recently having erupted last year in 2024. And continues every so often to remind people that it is still very much an active place. Again, for reference, so we were just sort of down over here along this beach a little bit. And here is, again, the smaller of the two. This is Volcano Madeiras. And if you look over this way, across the street, also covered in cloud, is Concepcion. So I'm only 2 or 3 minutes outside town and we're stuck in a bit of a traffic jam here. They're doing a bunch of tree clearing, I suspect related to the power outage last night. Good morning from my final day here, final full day on Ometepe. I'm here in Merida. I've been staying here at Rosa's cabins for the last couple nights, and it's been a very peaceful and serene surroundings. And you can see it's always got this sort of mysterious cloud cap on it, like it's wearing a hat all the time. I did catch a picture yesterday, however, of it without most of the clouds on it, which I'll put on the screen here. And yeah, it's definitely everywhere you go. That's all you see is the two volcanoes. And she said you just go up here, follow this trail, and when you get up there's a divide and you head left, and that's where the petroglyphs are. These are actually all coffee plants, I believe, walking through here. Some of them are extremely detailed and easy to see, depending on probably a combination of how deep they were carved and then how the stones weathered over time. And it almost, and I don't know if it is or not, but it almost looks like a turtle with the head facing sort of southeast with the shell, and then the water ripples off to the sides. So just some final thoughts here on Ometepe. I knew about it before I got here, and I knew that the recommendations were to rent a scooter and to travel the island and see some different places, but this place is just like another world. You're driving by these beautiful green lush rainforest areas with the volcano directly there in the background, and you're just waiting for some big old dinosaur to crawl out of the grass. It truly is a special place. And I hope that if you come to Nicaragua, that you do spend some time here in Ometepe and explore the whole island. Don't just stay in Moyogalpa, which is the biggest town, of course. But there are so many other places around to check out. And I feel like seeing the 3 that I did was a good kind of introduction to the island as a whole. The people here are wonderful. They're very kind. It's a very laid back place. And it's a place that you'll really enjoy. So I do hope that people come to Nicaragua, that, yeah, you do come here. So thank you so much for watching. As always, If you've been to Nicaragua and you found some places that I missed on my list through this recap or through my entire video series, let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you ever feel like supporting the channel, I've got a couple simple options here on the screen, as well as down in the description below. No pressure, but feel free to check them out. And remember, life is short. Wander. And I'll see you in the next video where we finally complete my recap of my trip from 2025 with Costa Rica.